Hey guys, I'm going to do a quick recap of some charts that I think look interesting. So I'll start with Amazon. I'm going to try this as a voiceover just to see if this is easier to kind of pick up and understand what I look for when starting a new position. So looking at Amazon here. So I'll just go over the chart first since I know sometimes these lines can be a bit confusing. So as a reminder, I'm looking at Amazon and here it says 1 day. So each candle, each of these things is 1 day. And then across the chart, you have a lot of these lines that I've added. The key ones that I look at are to start this range right here is called the sweet spot. There's a Twitter account called HCPG. I got the concept from them. It's basically using what's called Bollinger Bands. So it kind of works off of recent price action and kind of determines what these levels should be. So this is constantly moving and changing, but the general rule is that I set it up so that when a stock is in the sweet spot range, it's healthy, especially healthy. And I try to buy at the bottom end and sell at the top. So yeah, sometimes we get extended, like you can see right here. Amazon got extended beyond the sweet spot here, but as you can see, it got knocked back down and closed right at the top of the sweet spot that day. So same thing here. Try to get up through it, failed. So it's usually a pretty good gauge on when to kind of take profits and potentially when to enter as well. So I'd like to see Amazon hold here. This green line right here is the 50-day moving average. So it's held at that level since quite a while, all the way back until September of last year. So here's a good spot for it to bounce, especially if the market's going to continue higher. A lot of these big names like Amazon, Google, etc., have kind of underperformed versus the rest of the market lately. I'd like to see Amazon kind of make a pushback higher. And so the first targets, as always, let's see if it can get above the 8-day and 20-day. So 8-day here is a yellow line. That's 231.70. And the blue line is 234. That's the 20-day moving average. So I'd like to get it back within the sweet spot range, but I might take some time. But I'm starting. On Friday I started some April Amazon calls, and again I usually do at the money. That's just my style. I don't like to do too far out of the money. They're more expensive this way, but I effectively look at it as buying the shares at this price, and if it drops, then that's kind of like me stopping out of a share position, but I use options instead. So that's Amazon. Let's move on to Broadcom. So Broadcom, kind of zoom out on this one. It's been consolidating. It popped up here back in December on earnings. You can see this E right here, and it's been kind of a bit choppy, as you can see, but we're still just kind of trading within a range. This was, I believe, the DeepSeek fear day, so kind of a big drop here and held at that 50-day moving average a few times and rallied up. And now we're here above the 8 and 20-day, the yellow line and the blue line. And, we've been going sideways for, what is that, almost, 7 trading days. So I'd like to see it make a push up into this sweet spot range. So first target is 240, and then above that is 252-ish. I think it's been one of the strongest names. There's some news out over the weekend that Broadcom and Taiwan Semi may do some sort of splitting of Intel into their ownership pieces. So that could give it a nice little push. But generally, I think that the chart looks pretty great, and it's been one of the strongest names. So just keep an eye on that one. Next, I'll go over Grab. So I think I've spoken individually to a few of you about this one. I've just seen crazy options volume in this over the past few weeks on random days. So, in the thousands, if not 10,000s of contracts. So, what I look for in something like that is that definitely catches my eye. That doesn't mean that the trade's going to work for sure, but for example, if you're seeing people buying $5 calls of Grab in April in the thousands, or in July in the thousands, which I'm seeing, that shows some pretty bullish tendencies. It could also be, nothing. They have earnings this week. It could fail if they have a bad report. But this stock, if you kind of zoom out, like this has been, it got its initial IPO pop back in 2021. That was around 14, 15 range, and then just dropped, and it's been going sideways since 2022. And as you can see here, it's above this 8-day moving average on the monthly chart. So I think above 6, this can really get going, but it'll probably take earnings to kind of push it up. That being said, I'm seeing it all over Twitter now over the weekend. So I'm glad that I have hundreds of calls actually for this one. This is a total speculative bet, but they were cheap, and I've been adding on red days. I think this can push higher, but it always worries me when there's like too many people talking about it, because that could always be a bit of a bull trap situation. Next, I'm gonna go over Intuit. So this has traditionally been a pretty strong stock. Here's the monthly chart. You can see it pushed higher, got above this sweet spot, and got hit back down, and then kind of had just been forming this what's called a cup here, and this is what I like to call a handle. So cup and handle is a pretty bullish pattern. That being said, I'd like to see it get above this 612 level. This is the 8-day on the monthly chart. But looking at the daily chart, it's been in this downtrend since November, just kind of consolidating down, and I like to see this a little, big red, and then the buyers step in, and then some continuation, and now we're sitting like right above the 8-day moving average. But as you can see, it's kind of rejected multiple times every time it gets above that 8-day moving average. So let's see if it can kind of push higher this week. I'll see when the earnings are for this. The earnings for this one are February 25th. So that could be the push it needs. And at that point, it could drop a lot, but it could also break out and kind of get above that 600 range that I was mentioning from the monthly chart. So it can get back here into the sweet spot, and then it could potentially even push to 700. Might be something that I put on in terms of calls for earnings, or potentially just for a run up into earnings. So again, when you hold options into earnings, that's very risky. You can kind of just expect it to potentially go to zero, because especially if you have shorter term options, they're what's called juiced going into earnings. So they're like really expensive, and you're kind of factoring in that it can get a big bump based on earnings, but it can also drop a lot. So both puts and calls are expensive. And then after that event, they lose a lot of value. So that inherent value of like the unknown of what it can happen goes away, and you're more trading like closer to dollar for dollar on those options. So just something to keep in mind. I may just have lottos, like maybe 620 lottos or something like that, just a few, but I'd like to play a move into the earnings report. Okay, couple more. MSTR, let's go over that one. MicroStrategy, or I guess it's called Strategy now. They rebranded. This has been a crazy one. Like, look at the monthly chart for this one. It's insane. If you got in even just a year ago, it was like what, $50. It's had a crazy run. It's obviously highly correlated to Bitcoin. So the company doesn't really do much else other than kind of accumulate Bitcoin, and it's done well for them to this point. It has over since November. It had this huge spike again. Got above the sweet spot here. Even this week it was like way extended, and then it kind of just had this like blow off top failure. So it got all the way up here and then dropped all the way down here, and it's kind of just been dripping lower and consolidating, and it's held this 100-day moving average, and now it just got above the 8-day moving average. Just kind of zoom in right here. So that's somewhat encouraging. The only issue is that it's obviously highly correlated with Bitcoin. And let's just quickly look at the Bitcoin chart. That tried to get above the 8-day over the weekend, and it failed. So I'd like to see Bitcoin perform a lot better. That would obviously help MSCR do better. But just something on my watch if Bitcoin starts to perform better. This could, potentially squeeze higher back up to like 400, 500 range. Obviously, let's start with 400. I want to see it get to this top of the sweet spot around 390. So again, something I would look to do is maybe buy some calls at the money for a month or more out. That's typically what I do. Yeah, and let's do maybe a couple. Oh, one more. Let's do one more. Lemonade. This is like another fintech insurance type play. A lot of these charts that you'll see that look pretty similar. Big spike at the IPO time in around 2021, and then down just basing sideways for since 2022. I don't know how many times I've said that over these charts the last few weeks, but yeah, you can see it's kind of interesting time. Like people say, like the market's super elevated, but a lot of these names are just starting to look better after being kind of destroyed over the past few years. So this is sitting right above its 8-day on the monthly chart. You can see it tried to spike up and then it kind of back tested it now. So I think this is a pretty good entry. A lot of similar names or names in similar space, like UPST has had a great earnings report. They were expected to have listed a loss, and they came in with a profit. So that was encouraging. And that's obviously had a big run from, what was that, 67-ish. I had some shares that I bought at 65, 66, somewhere around there. Right when I saw it kind of like breaking above and trying to reclaim this 8 and 20 day, the yellow and blue lines. But so Lemonade, let me see when they report earnings. They report earnings on the 25th as well, so that could give it a nice squeezy pop. The other thing that I look for that is worth checking out on a lot of these names is short interest. Let's see if this one has any short interest. So let's see here. Okay, so I use a site called Finviz, Finviz. You can just kind of search for the ticker there and look at what's called a short float. That's a percentage. So anything above like 10 is pretty significant short interest. This one has 30%. And the other value that I look at is short ratio. That basically means like the number of days that it would take to cover this position as a short. So as a quick reminder, short percentage means like the number of shares shorted. So that means that there's a lot of people betting against Lemonade. Now, if they have a great earnings report, it could cause what's called a short squeeze. So a lot of times, the whole GameStop thing, that was an example of one that was like the most probably famous short squeeze, where people were shorting it like over 100%. And so Lemonade chart looks great, sitting above the 8-day and 20-day. It was as high as, what, that 50, 53, 54 back in November. So I think this can squeeze higher, especially with the way the other fintech names have performed lately. I'll just do one last one. XYZ. This has been total painful stock for me. I kind of got sucked into the whole Twitter representation of this stock. So this is formerly Square. Now he changed the ticker name to XYZ. Hopefully that changes how it behaves. But it's had this nice pop back in November, December time, and now it's been trending down since then. And now it's held this 100-day moving average, the pink line. And I'd like to see it get back above this 8 and 20-day. The earnings are, let's see when the earnings are. They are this Thursday. So that could be a nice little push for it. That being said, it's like a PayPal. PayPal, I thought that might do the same thing, and it's totally fell off during earnings. Like to see this one kind of turn around and get back above the 8-day, and I think it may have bottomed as it's held this 200-day moving average. You can also see here, I'll do another video on this later on because it's still something I'm getting more familiar to using more often is the RSI, which is the relative strength index. So what I try to see is, is that trending upward, this like pink or this purple line. So going back to XYZ, once it's above this 8 and 20 day, again, targeting, ideally getting it to 92. But I'd like to really see it kind of just swing up, form a little cup up here around this, 99, 100 range, and then kind of go sideways and push higher after that. So, yeah, that's a quick recap of a few stocks. If you have any other tickers that you want me to look at, or questions on this, or other videos that you want me to do on the educational side, let me know. Thanks.